Hey everyone, I'm Pavi, I'm 15 years old, and for the purposes of just a short intro, I'm a nanotechnology enthusiast. Now this video is all about my journey with nanotech, but also my journey with a new project I had called Quantum Tags, which basically makes counterfeiting absolutely impossible by harnessing the nanoscale. Just a really quick side note for this video, this might not actually be the typical content you may see from me. Now I could create this super hype video about me trying to explain everything I've learned in the past 2 months in just 10 minutes. Or I could walk you through my journey with nanotechnology and how I created Quantum Tags, this really cool project, why I did what I did, and how I went about doing it. And I'd much rather do that. Now my goal for this video is just to have you understand why nanotech can be the next anti-counterfeiting technology. And I just want you to understand the basics of these quantum tags. Now in case you do want a super in-depth scientific breakdown of the entire project, you can check out my project link in the description box below, alongside a paper that I actually wrote emphasizing all of this research that I did, and overall just giving you more resources of the entire project. So for the purposes of this video, take it as a FaceTime call or a super short podcast episode, whatever floats your boat. But just enjoy this journey because I know that I did. Now let's backtrack a little bit. I mentioned nanotechnology quite a bit. Now nanotech, in short, is basically everything on the atomic scale. It's manipulating atoms and understanding that on this nanoscale, the typical laws of physics don't apply. Instead, we get something much cooler called quantum mechanics. Now personally, I've been on my journey with nanotech and quantum mechanics for roughly 8 months now. It might not be as long compared to some nanotech experts, but it's been quite a while. Now, much of this was actually spent dealing with nanotech within healthcare. I started with looking into nanotech and its application within cancer, then in formulating smart pills, and finally I wrote a paper on quantum dots for point of care and rapid testing. Now, this technology itself has tons and tons of potential, whether it be in healthcare, in the energy sector, creating a clean environment, whatever it may be, nanotech can actually be applied to it. But the one thing with a lot of these new and emerging technologies is that they are new, meaning a lot of them, specifically in the scientific field, haven't been tested everywhere or for every use case or for every situation, meaning they aren't actually trusted by everyone. Now, nanotech is one of them. In fact, many may say that nanotech is at a pre-inflection point, meaning it's pretty far from actually being implemented right now. Now, you may be thinking, okay, sure, it's a really early technology and it's new, but there is a ton of potential, so why isn't it actually being implemented? Well, this is due to so many factors that do apply depending on the field. But one of them is nanofabrication, which is a universal thing for nanotech. Now, for particular things like consistent clean energy or for a drug delivery method, the solution has to be precise and consistent. So it has to fit the person or the environment this is for, but it always has to be identical to the last one produced. But nanofabrication is basically how nanomaterials are created, but they are pretty inconsistent. For example, just 12 years ago, graphene actually won a Nobel Prize because of its incredible potential. But due to the current manufacturing methods, no 2 sheets of graphene are actually identical. And to really understand it, in short, producing graphene is pretty interesting. You can kind of think of it as basically taking 2 bricks of graphene, putting them in a blender, putting water on top of them and blending it up, then having the blender tear those bricks of graphene into single layer sheets. Obviously, when you think of that, you understand that no 2 sheets are going to be identical because they're going through the blender really fast, different amounts of water, different things are going to be not identical. Now, of course, we can get super expensive machinery and try to fabricate identical nanomaterials, but it's really far down the line. Now, at this point in my nanotech journey, I was really confused. I was like, this one thing is really hindering the growth of nanotech. I mean, we can't make any 2 things, any 2 nanomaterials the exact same. So that's when I became, again, really confused. I saw this really big downside. And then I was like, okay, wait, what if this con could be turned into a pro? What 2 things or what things do we not want to be identical or replicated? That's when I realized that nanotech can actually be used to save billions of dollars and millions of lives by preventing counterfeit goods. So me being me, I went on a super long research sprint. And I kid you not, I literally spent hours and hours every night researching this. I read like over 30 research papers, and like this is my pile. Like this is my stack of just handwritten notes about like all of this stuff back and forth. And I honestly became so excited with the idea that something that could be hindering the future of this technology can actually be used to our advantage to solve this really big problem. And so my journey with anti-counterfeiting began, and that's when I created Quantum Tags. Now, believe it or not, there are actually dozens of ways that nanotech can be used for anti-counterfeiting, one of which being physically unclonable functions, or PUFs. Now, puffs are basically these minuscule chips that carry this encrypted information. Now, regardless of the method used, they are based completely and entirely off of atomic randomness. Now, current anti-counterfeiting solutions can actually be reverse engineered, meaning that a counterfeiter can basically just attack it. For example, you can consider anything like an RFID tag, which is super common in the world of anti-counterfeiting. Now, what attackers actually do is they take anything, they analyze it, they recreate it, and then they mass produce it. Now, quantum tags actually prevent this analysis entirely. The very first step, it just never happens. This is again all due to atomic randomness, and that everything on the nanoscale actually doesn't follow conventional physics, but instead quantum mechanics. And so basically everything on this nanoscale is kind of unpredictable. Now, I want you to think of it like this. For example, my dream place to go, my dream vacation spot is Switzerland. Now, let's say that there are two methods for me to get to Switzerland, and let's say that I go very, very often. Now, I can either fly in a plane, given a number 0, or in a helicopter, given a number of 1. Now, for example, let's say that I do this every single week, and I randomly choose a different option every time, but you never actually know what I'm going to choose. Now, this is exactly it. Picture me instead to be an electron, and you to be the voltage who is measuring my path. Each time the electron takes a plane path, they get a 0, and every time they take the helicopter, they get a 1. Now, you never actually know what path the electron will take because it's so random, and this will create a binary number of digits or bits, and this will be encrypted onto the puff. Now, not only are these unpredictable, but they're also unclonable. Now, I just gave you two simple examples, whether it be the graphene in the blender situation or me going to Switzerland. But these happen in so many different aspects on the nanoscale. But for my solution of quantum tags, I use quantum dots, or QDs. Now again, like everything on the nanoscale, no two quantum dots are identical. I mean, I think you get the gist of it now. Now, quantum dots overall, they emit light when you emit light to them. Whether you are 300 nanometers in front of them, holding a flashlight to them, they'll emit light back to you, or if you're 1,000 nanometers away. But either way, they will give you different results based on the angle of light you're emitting to them, how far you are, where exactly you are, and what color they are. So every single one is different, and none of them can be replicated. Alright, so in my journey, once I finally understood all of this atomic randomness, I decided to go really deep into how we can actually make these tags. And so that's when I started making the quantum tags. So basically, it starts off by having a substrate. The substrate is deposited with microspheres in a little hill. Basically, they are spread out by spin coating. So the tray is spinning super, super fast while all these little pinning points are added to them. Then the substrate, after these pinning points are there, they are randomly deposited as the substrate is spinning. Eventually, we have inkjet printing of the configured quantum dot inks. So inkjet printing can be thought of like a nozzle and paint, where you're randomly splattering paint all across the substrate. Eventually, the microspheres are randomly pinning and slipping, and all of these ink droplets end up evaporating. Then the final label is configured and formed once they are dry. Now, what's great about these quantum tags is that they must be accessible to the end user. And so, we use an AI app powered by deep learning, and these would actually authenticate the quantum tags. Now, this is how the process goes. The first step begins with every single quantum tag being imaged with an advanced fluorescence microscope by the manufacturer. They would basically randomly shift and rotate all of the images in a larger data set of images, which the model would learn from, and the emission light would also be changing for the quantum dot. Then the images would be trained on the AI, and they are characterized by the geometry of the label, so that's how the deep learning engine actually learns, and this is all done by the manufacturer. Then, the consumer would actually receive the product, and they could use their smartphone to read out the puff codes by taking a picture of the tag. Then the pictures are automatically sent to the deep learning model for authentication, and then the engine within seconds will send back the authentication results, real or fake. Now, B to G basically represent a library of 6 of these single dot patterns on the quantum tags. H to M showcase 6 more images taken from image B, which is the genuine product, with varying brightnesses, sharpnesses, rotation angles, magnifications, but overall all the geometry is staying the same, and it showcases how the AI and deep learning engine basically explain that these are real. However, products N to S actually display 6 of the images which are not on the database, but also don't conform to the typical geometry of B to G. So this shows how these quantum dots are fake. Now, these quantum tags can actually be implemented into every single product. And what's great is that new advancements keep coming out. So we actually have a new advancement where quantum dots can self-assemble. But this can actually be used onto these substrates, saving tons and tons of money for the manufacturing costs. What's great is that these tags would actually save the entire world every single year over $1 trillion. In fact, they would be saving millions of lives every year from fake pharmaceutical pills or fake batteries. So overall, let's make anti-counterfeiting as simple as a Google search. Now overall, I've given multiple presentations on this topic. I've written a paper, I've built mockups, and overall devoted a ton of time to this project. So be sure to support Quantum Tags. Check out all of the project links in the description, including my paper, to really get a deep understanding of the nanotech. Now that you know all the basics, and you're basically an expert at this point. But overall, check it all out, and until next time.